In the golden grasslands of Savannah Springs, Charlotte Monroe stood trembling yet resolute, facing the fierce gaze of Zara, a lioness fighting desperately to give life to her cub. Every instinct screamed danger, but her heart whispered courage. Across the preserve, 15-year-old Billy Parker stumbled onto shadows in the dark, men whose whispers threatened the fragile peace. Fate was about to bind a fearless woman, a brave young boy, and a majestic lioness in a battle for survival, compassion, and redemption beneath the endless Texas sky. Morning sunlight broke across the endless plains of Savannah Springs, Texas, casting long, golden streaks over the tall grasses. The sky stretched wide and clear, its vivid blues untouched by clouds. A gentle breeze rustled softly through the savanna, offering momentary relief from the approaching heat. Savannah Springs was a vast preserve famous for its thriving lion population, wildflowers that painted the fields in vibrant shades every spring, and the occasional tough Texas storm. The nearest town, Redstone, a quaint community lined with rustic wooden buildings and a single main street, sat quietly at the edge of the preserve, welcoming tourists and wildlife enthusiasts year-round. Charlotte Monroe stepped out of the dusty Jeep, her boots crunching softly on the gravel. At 33, she was a striking figure of quiet authority and compassion. Her long honey blonde hair was neatly braided, her clear blue eyes sharp and observant. The Texas sun had lightly bronzed her skin, a testament to countless days spent outdoors. Charlotte's athletic build spoke of strength and endurance, qualities essential to her role as a senior conservation officer at the preserve. Friends described her as courageous and fiercely protective of the animal she loved, but Charlotte saw herself simply as someone who listened to the land's quiet whispers. Today, the preserve hummed with tension. Reports had reached Charlotte that Zara, a lioness she had known since her own rookie days, was experiencing severe complications with her pregnancy. Zara was the matriarch, a powerful lioness with a tawny coat shimmering gold in the sunlight, amber eyes sharp yet gentle, and muscles that moved gracefully beneath her fur. But now, her mighty frame had weakened, and she paced restlessly, her roars echoing painfully through the valley. "Charlotte, are you certain about this?" The cautious voice belonged to James "Jimmy" Walker, the preserve's veterinarian. Jimmy was 37, with unruly chestnut curls and soft brown eyes that held a gentle wisdom. He wore glasses slightly askew, his lean figure clad in practical khaki trousers and a blue button-up shirt rolled up to his elbows. Jimmy was mild-mannered but firm when necessary, admired by many for his quiet dedication. His affection for Charlotte, though carefully hidden, was evident to anyone who watched closely. Charlotte nodded resolutely, pulling on her heavy leather gloves. "Zara needs help. She's not just an animal to me, Jimmy. She's family. If I don't go out there, we'll lose them both." Jimmy sighed, nodding reluctantly as he gathered medical equipment from the Jeep. "Then I'm going with you." The two made their cautious approach, Zara's pain growls guiding them through tall grasses that whispered softly against their legs. The pride watched warily from a distance, golden eyes alert and tense. Zara's large figure lay hidden partially behind a rock, her breaths ragged. Charlotte slowly knelt down, heart hammering in her chest. Zara locked eyes with her, and for an instant, there was understanding between human and beast. Charlotte whispered calmly, softly, each word soothing. "It's all right, girl. I'm here to help." In the same moments, miles away at the edge of the preserve, Billy Parker was roaming near his home. At 15, Billy was lean and wiry, with sandy brown hair that constantly fell into his curious green eyes. Known in Redstone for his mischievous adventures, Billy had earned a reputation as the town's unofficial explorer, always wandering places others warned him against. But beneath his playful bravado was an earnest, courageous heart, shaped partly by the recent loss of his mother, who had loved the wilderness as deeply as he did. Tonight, Billy's heart was restless, urging him into the shadows. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting dark shades of blue and purple across the sky, Billy heard muffled voices and saw flashlights dancing suspiciously along the preserve's fence line. He crept closer, feeling adrenaline spike in his chest. Peering from behind a cluster of thick bushes, he saw two unfamiliar figures, their faces hidden by hats and scarves, discussing something quietly. One man, broad-shouldered and bulky, gestured angrily toward the preserve, while the other, a smaller, wiry individual, nodded eagerly. Billy strained his ears, catching fragments of their conversation. Perfect timing, Lioness weakened, easy pickings. Billy's pulse quickened. He realized with horror that these men intended harm to Zara and her vulnerable pride. Determined to protect the animals he adored, Billy quietly pulled out his phone, snapping a blurry picture before retreating silently into the night. Meanwhile, back in the heart of the preserve, Jimmy monitored Zara closely. Sweat trickled down Charlotte's forehead as she carefully and gently maneuvered Zara into a safer, more comfortable position. The lioness growled weakly but did not resist, her amber eyes dimming with exhaustion. Charlotte spoke softly as she worked, whispering encouragement, her voice calm despite the danger that surrounded them. The tension in the air was palpable, and each minute stretched into an eternity. Finally, after agonizing minutes, Charlotte helped Zara deliver her cub, a tiny creature whose first cries echoed faintly across the grasslands. Charlotte's hands trembled with relief as she gently placed the cub near Zara, whose eyes softened immediately at the sight of her newborn. Jimmy exhaled sharply, relief evident in his warm smile as he softly congratulated Charlotte. "You did it," he whispered. Charlotte allowed herself a brief smile before her eyes grew serious again. "She's not safe yet, Jimmy. Something feels wrong." As if on cue, Zara's breathing suddenly grew shallow, her body trembling visibly. Charlotte's heart sank, knowing this wasn't over yet. She exchanged a tense glance with Jimmy, their shared concern evident. But she couldn't leave. Not now. Not after coming so far. Far away, Billy raced breathlessly through Redstone's main street toward home, gripping his phone tightly. His mind was racing, formulating a plan to stop whatever sinister intentions those strangers had. He needed to show someone the photograph, convince someone to believe him. Billy's determination solidified with each hurried step. Back in the preserve, the night grew darker, shadows swallowing the landscape as stars glittered silently above. Charlotte knelt closely beside Zara, whispering gentle reassurances, refusing to abandon the lioness she had known and loved for years. She felt helpless yet resolute, determined to stay until Zara was out of danger. Jimmy remained close, vigilant, and ready to assist. And in the quiet of that tense night, the fates of Charlotte, Billy, Zara, and the pride slowly began to intertwine, each unaware of the challenges awaiting them, yet driven forward by courage and compassion beneath the vast Texas sky. As dawn broke over Savannah Springs, a heavy mist curled gently over the vast grasslands, shrouding everything in ghostly silver. The air felt thick, damp with the promise of a scorching afternoon yet to come. Charlotte Monroe sat quietly in the modest meeting room of the preserve's main building, her fingers drumming nervously on the wooden table. Around her, the walls were lined with photographs of animals she'd cared for, each image a testament to the passion she'd poured into Savannah Springs. Opposite Charlotte sat Emmett Carson, the chief conservation officer. A tall, rugged man in his late 50s, Emmett had steely gray hair cut military short, sharp blue eyes, and a demeanor perpetually hardened by years of dealing with crises. Though fair and deeply committed to the preserve, Emmett was a man governed by rules, and Charlotte's spontaneous decision to aid Zara had clearly breached protocol. His face was stern as he glanced between Charlotte and Jimmy Walker, seated anxiously beside her. "Charlotte, your intentions were admirable," Emmett began, voice even yet tense, "but we have strict guidelines for a reason. You place yourself and others in unacceptable danger." Charlotte leaned forward slightly, eyes unwavering. "Emmett, Zara would have died without intervention. We can't protect wildlife if we're afraid to act when they're most vulnerable." Emmett's jaw tightened visibly, But before he could respond, another voice broke in, a calm, authoritative female voice belonging to Dr. Olivia Garrett. Olivia was the senior biologist of the preserve, an elegant woman in her mid-40s with short, stylishly cropped auburn hair. Her eyes were sharp green, her slim figure always impeccably dressed, her manner precise and methodical. Olivia had mentored Charlotte early in her career, and their bond had been one of mutual respect, though lately strained by differing philosophies. "Charlotte," Olivia said carefully, "Emmett's right to question your methods. However, I personally believe you made the correct call. Zara represents more than just one lioness. She's vital to the pride's stability." Charlotte's shoulders relaxed slightly, grateful for Olivia's subtle support. Jimmy nodded in silent agreement, quietly noting how Charlotte's resilience shone in this difficult moment. He reached under the table, squeezing her hand softly. A reassuring gesture. Charlotte returned with a faint smile, warmth filling her chest despite the tension. Meanwhile, across town, Billy Parker sat hunched over his cluttered desk, photographs scattered chaotically around him. Morning sunlight streamed into his small bedroom, illuminating posters of famous adventurers taped haphazardly to the walls. Billy's fingers trembled slightly as he enlarged one of the blurry images on his computer screen. He stared intently, heart pounding when he noticed something new, a distinctive symbol tattooed on the wrist of the larger man he'd seen last night. "Gotcha," Billy whispered triumphantly. A sudden knock at the door startled Billy, making him jump. His younger sister, Mia Parker, peered in curiously. At 10, Mia was petite and lively, with wavy dark brown hair always tied into pigtails and an adventurous sparkle in her matching green eyes. Her curiosity frequently got her into trouble, but Billy adored her fiercely. "What are you up to, Billy?" she chirped brightly. Billy hesitated, quickly minimizing the screen. "Just homework," he lied unconvincingly. Mia scrunched her nose skeptically, then shrugged. "Okay, but Mom said breakfast is ready." Billy nodded absently, mind already racing to identify the tattoo he discovered. The symbol, a stylized hunting arrow entwined with a serpent, felt strangely familiar. He quickly printed out the image, stuffing it hurriedly into his backpack before joining his family downstairs. Back at Savannah Springs, tensions in the meeting room slowly eased, though Emmett remained unconvinced. Charlotte had managed to buy some time, but understood the fragile balance she tread. Once alone in the hallway, Jimmy touched her shoulder gently. "Are you all right?" he asked softly, concern evident in his kind eyes. Charlotte exhaled, releasing tension she'd held all morning. "Honestly, I'm not sure. I never doubted myself until now." Jimmy offered a reassuring smile, his eyes sincere behind his slightly askew glasses. "Charlotte, you're the bravest person I know. Don't let anyone, including Emmett, convince you otherwise." His words, earnest and tender, stirred something deep within Charlotte. She held his gaze a moment longer, heart thudding softly, before nodding with renewed determination. "Let's go check on Zara and the cub." The walk to the enclosure was quiet yet comfortable, the morning air fragrant with dew-kissed grass and wildflowers. They found Zara resting peacefully, the cub nestled protectively against her tawny fur. Zara's breathing had stabilized, and her amber eyes now held strength and warmth as Charlotte approached cautiously. Charlotte knelt, smiling softly. "You did great, Zara." Jimmy knelt beside her, carefully examining Zara and the cub. His gentle professionalism never ceased to impress Charlotte, reinforcing the admiration and affection she already felt. Miles away, Billy walked briskly toward town, heading to the only place he thought might help him identify the mysterious tattoo: the workshop of Ezra Jennings, Redstone's resident mechanic and local historian. Ezra, in his late 60s, was a wiry man with thinning silver hair and bushy eyebrows, whose perpetually greasy overalls had a sharp mind and a wealth of obscure local knowledge. Ezra looked up from beneath the hood of a rusted pickup as Billy entered, wiping grease-stained hands on a rag. "Billy Parker," he greeted gruffly yet warmly. "What mischief brings you here today?" Billy grinned sheepishly, pulling the photograph from his backpack. Actually, Ezra, I need your expertise. Ezra squinted thoughtfully at the image, expression darkening noticeably. That symbol ain't good news, kid. Belongs to a group called the Southern Serpents. Bunch of low-life poachers who've been stirring trouble for years. Billy's stomach clenched with dread. I saw 2 of them near Savannah Springs last night. Ezra's eyes sharpened immediately. Billy, listen carefully. These folks are dangerous. Stay clear and get this information to someone at the preserve immediately. Billy nodded, determined despite the sudden fear Ezra's warning invoked. He thanked Ezra quickly, already plotting his next move. Meanwhile, Charlotte and Jimmy finished Zara's checkup, relieved by her improvement. As they walked together back toward the facility, Jimmy hesitated, cheeks flushed lightly beneath the rising sun. Charlotte, I want to tell you, I admire what you did yesterday. Not many people would have had the courage. Charlotte smiled warmly, heart swelling with affection. I couldn't have done it without you, Jimmy. Your support means everything. They paused momentarily, both aware of the deepening connection blossoming between them. The moment, quiet and gentle, was interrupted by Billy's hurried approach from the trail, his eyes wide with urgency. Charlotte, Jimmy. Billy panted, breathless. There's something important you need to know. Both adults turned swiftly, immediately sensing trouble in Billy's frantic expression. Billy, Charlotte said gently yet urgently, tell us everything. The young boy took a deep breath, the weight of responsibility heavy in his young eyes. There's a group of poachers, dangerous ones. I think they're targeting Zara and her pride. Charlotte and Jimmy exchanged anxious glances. The peace of the morning abruptly shattered as Savannah Springs stood poised once again on the edge of crisis. The late morning sun had risen high above Savannah Springs, its heat intensifying and dispersing the early mists, leaving behind a vibrant and radiant landscape that shimmered under clear Texas skies. A gentle yet dry breeze whispered softly across the grasslands, carrying with it the earthy scent of soil and wild sage. The preserve's main enclosure, where Zara rested, had grown unusually quiet, an anxious silence broken only by the faint chirping of distant birds. Charlotte Monroe sat vigilantly near Zara, a weary but determined guardian. Zara's breathing had grown shallow overnight, her amber eyes dulled by exhaustion, the proud lioness reduced to a vulnerable shadow of her former majestic self. Beside her lay the cub, tiny yet robust, oblivious to the gravity of the moment. Charlotte gently stroked Zara's fur, whispering soft encouragements that seemed as much for her own comfort as for the lioness. Jimmy Walker had set up a makeshift medical station under a shaded canvas tent a few feet away. His face was etched with fatigue, yet his gentle determination never wavered. He adjusted his glasses carefully, studying Zara's vital signs with cautious optimism tempered by the realism of experience. Charlotte, we need to prepare ourselves. Jimmy spoke softly, his voice strained. Zara is strong, but her body has been severely taxed. Charlotte looked up sharply, her blue eyes hardening briefly with defiance before softening into acknowledgement. I know, Jimmy, but we owe it to Zara to do everything we possibly can. Jimmy nodded solemnly, respecting Charlotte's steadfast loyalty, and returned to meticulously preparing another 4-drip. Charlotte watched him thoughtfully, a surge of deep affection mingling with admiration for his unwavering patience and skill. At the entrance to the enclosure, a sudden commotion broke the fragile stillness. Charlotte stood abruptly, nerves taut, but relaxed slightly when she saw it was Amelia Carter, the preserve's newly assigned intern. Amelia was young, just 22, with curly red hair spilling over her shoulders, bright hazel eyes perpetually wide with wonder, and a smattering of freckles across her sun-kissed face. Her bubbly enthusiasm often overshadowed her occasional clumsiness, but she meant well and was eager to learn. Amelia hurried forward, clutching a thermos and several paper bags, her cheeks flushed from running. Charlotte, Jimmy, I brought coffee and breakfast from Ruby's Cafe. Figured you both needed something. Charlotte smiled warmly, accepting the coffee gratefully. "Thank you, Amelia. Your timing is perfect." Amelia's eyes darted to Zara anxiously. "Is she any better?" Charlotte shook her head slightly, her face reflecting quiet resolve. "We're still fighting." Meanwhile, in Redstone, Billy Parker's frustration grew with every passing minute. He had spent the entire morning attempting to warn the adults in town about the imminent threat posed by the Southern Serpents, but his efforts had been met with dismissive skepticism. At the local sheriff's office, Billy faced Sheriff Randall Dixon, a robust man in his early 50s with short salt-and-pepper hair and deep-set, skeptical brown eyes. Sheriff Dixon, known for his tough demeanor but fair judgment, regarded Billy dubiously from behind his cluttered desk. "Listen, Billy," the sheriff sighed, running a calloused hand through his hair. "I appreciate your enthusiasm, but what you've got here is blurry photos and overheard whispers. I need more than that to act." Billy's frustration bubbled to the surface. "Sheriff, please. Ezra Jennings told me these people are dangerous." The sheriff raised an eyebrow skeptically. "Ezra sees danger behind every rock, Billy. I promise, we'll keep an eye out, but don't go starting any trouble yourself, all right?" Feeling utterly dejected, Billy stepped out into the bright daylight, fists clenched at his sides. He knew he couldn't just sit idle. Too much was at stake. Back at the preserve, Charlotte's concern deepened as Zara showed little improvement. The lioness's breath was increasingly labored, her eyes now glassy with fever. Charlotte placed a cool, damp cloth gently on Zara's head, whispering softly, her voice soothing despite the growing ache in her heart. "Stay strong, Zara," she murmured. "We're all counting on you." Jimmy approached quietly, setting a reassuring hand gently on Charlotte's shoulder. "You've done everything humanly possible, Charlotte." She looked up into Jimmy's kind eyes, feeling comfort in his unwavering support. They shared a moment of silent understanding, a deeper bond forming between them amid the tension and uncertainty. Amelia interrupted hesitantly, shifting anxiously from one foot to another. "Charlotte, someone's here to see you. Says it's urgent." Charlotte rose quickly, seeing Billy standing anxiously at the gate, waving to catch her attention. She approached him briskly, noticing immediately the frustration and urgency in his young eyes. "Billy, is everything okay?" Billy shook his head urgently, handing her the printed image of the tattoo. "Charlotte, please, you have to listen. There's a group of poachers, the Southern Serpents, targeting Zara and the Lions. I tried to tell Sheriff Dixon, but he didn't believe me." Charlotte studied the image carefully, recognizing the gravity of Billy's revelation. Her expression hardened. "Billy, thank you. You've done exactly the right thing." Billy visibly relaxed, relieved that someone finally took him seriously. "What can I do to help?" Charlotte placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You've already done enough, Billy. Now let me handle this. Go home, stay safe. I promise we'll act." Billy nodded reluctantly, though his eyes still burned with determination. As he departed, Charlotte turned toward Jimmy, sharing the urgent news. Jimmy listened carefully, expression grim. "We need to alert Emmett immediately. Zara and the cubs are too vulnerable." Charlotte agreed, heart racing with renewed urgency. "Jimmy, stay here with Zara. I'll go talk to Emmett." Charlotte quickly made her way to Emmett Carson's office, heart pounding in her chest. The older man listened intently as she relayed Billy's warning, eyes narrowing sharply. "If this is true, Charlotte, we have a serious problem," Emmett stated gravely. "I'll alert security immediately and double patrols around Zara's enclosure." Charlotte breathed a sigh of relief, grateful Emmett finally recognized the severity of the threat. As she left his office, a newfound determination fueled her every step back to Zara's side. Returning, Charlotte found Jimmy gently tending Zara, Amelia watching anxiously from nearby. Zara's breathing had eased slightly, but her condition remained fragile. Charlotte knelt close again, feeling a deep sense of purpose and protectiveness. "Hang in there, Zara," she whispered, voice filled with conviction. "I promise you're safe." Nearby, hidden amid dense foliage outside the preserve fence, two shadowy figures stood watching through binoculars. The larger man, burly and menacing, chuckled darkly as he lowered his binoculars, revealing the serpent tattoo curled ominously around his wrist. "Looks like they're on alert now," he growled, smirking coldly. "Let's give them a night they'll never forget." As the sun climbed steadily higher, casting sharp shadows across the preserve, the delicate threads of life and danger at Savannah Springs stretched taut, awaiting the inevitable snap. The Texas sky stretched vast and vibrant, its endless blue broken only by small, fluffy clouds drifting lazily above Savannah Springs. The intense heat of midday faded gradually, replaced by a gentler warmth as afternoon approached, casting a golden glow over the grassy expanse of the preserve. Billy Parker sat at the edge of town near the old water tower, the highest point overlooking both Redstone and the preserve. His green eyes narrowed in determination, carefully surveying the quiet streets below through his binoculars, borrowed secretly from his father's dusty hunting gear. Billy had decided he couldn't trust the adults to handle this crisis. Sheriff Dixon was skeptical, Charlotte had her hands full with Zara, and Ezra Jennings was overly cautious. It was up to Billy now, and he felt the weight of responsibility heavily on his young shoulders. Adjusting his faded baseball cap backward, he peered again, focusing on the center of town. Suddenly, Billy's binoculars froze on a familiar figure emerging from the convenience store. It was Donnie Hill, the town mechanic's assistant. Donnie was a lanky young man of 24, his shaggy blonde hair perpetually unkempt beneath his oil-stained trucker cap. His easy smile was well known in town, and Billy had always seen Donnie as friendly and harmless, though somewhat lazy. But today, Billy's eyes widened in shock. He spotted clearly on Donnie's wrist, partially hidden under his rolled-up sleeve, the unmistakable tattoo of the southern serpents. "No way," Billy muttered, heart racing. Donnie had been at their home countless times, fixing his father's old pickup or laughing easily with neighbors. Could he really be part of something so dangerous? Before Billy could process further, another person exited the store, laughing along with Donnie. Billy almost dropped the binoculars in shock. Standing beside Donnie was Jake Wilkins, owner of Jake's Hardware. Jake was a stout man in his early 40s, with thinning dark hair, ruddy cheeks, and an eternally cheerful disposition. He sponsored local baseball teams, volunteered at charity barbecues, and was one of Redstone's most trusted residents. Billy couldn't believe it. Jake also bore the tattoo, visible briefly as he reached up to scratch his head. Billy quickly scrambled to his feet, determined to follow them. He hurried down from the water tower, landing awkwardly, almost falling headfirst into a thick bush of prickly cactus. He managed to steady himself just in time, muttering a quiet curse under his breath. "Get it together, Billy," he whispered urgently, pulling a thorn from his jeans with a grimace. Carefully trailing Donnie and Jake from a distance, Billy's amateur spy skills became glaringly obvious. He ducked clumsily behind mailboxes, tripped over garbage cans, and even accidentally stepped onto Mrs. Grayson's freshly watered flower bed. Mrs. Grayson, the elderly librarian of Redstone with curly silver hair, sharp eyes, and a famously short temper, immediately chased Billy off her property with an angry wave of her broom, shouting, "Billy Parker, I'll call your father if you ruin my roses again." Billy hurriedly apologized, stumbling away and barely regaining his balance in time to keep up his pursuit. Though nervous and embarrassed, Billy's resolve only strengthened with each misstep. Meanwhile, back at Savannah Springs, Charlotte Monroe sat quietly beside Zara, whose breathing had grown steadier over the last few hours. Zara's cub nursed peacefully, thriving despite the earlier danger. Jimmy Walker watched Charlotte silently from across the enclosure, admiration clear in his gentle eyes. He approached softly, handing her a cold bottle of water. "Charlotte, you've barely rested in days." Jimmy's voice was soft and kind, filled with genuine concern. Charlotte looked up gratefully, her gaze softening as she met his eyes. "Thanks, Jimmy. Honestly, I can't bring myself to leave her." Jimmy smiled knowingly, gently sitting beside her, close enough that their shoulders brushed lightly. A comfortable silence settled between them, punctuated only by Zara's calm breathing. Charlotte felt a strange fluttering in her chest, finally allowing herself to recognize the feelings she had quietly harbored for Jimmy. "You know," Jimmy said gently after a moment, "watching you these last few days, seeing how fiercely you fought for Zara, it just made me realize even more how special you truly are." Charlotte blushed faintly, heart quickening. "Jimmy, I feel the same about you. I couldn't have gotten through this without you." Their eyes met briefly, a silent acknowledgement passing between them, a bond deepening beyond friendship, woven from shared trials and quiet strength. In town, Billy's pursuit continued toward Jake's hardware store. Hidden behind stacks of lumber in the alley, Billy overheard fragments of conversation that sent chills down his spine. "Tonight, patrol doubled. Gotta move quick," Jake whispered urgently. Donnie responded nervously, "Jake, I don't know. We could really get caught this time." Jake's voice grew cold, unlike the friendly man Billy had known. "We're too deep to back out now. Zara's worth more than we make in a year." Billy's heart sank. He knew he had to warn Charlotte again, but how? No one believed him before. Lost in thought, he accidentally leaned against a loose plank, sending it clattering noisily to the ground. Jake and Donnie spun around, instantly alert. Billy bolted from his hiding spot, dashing wildly down the street, heart pounding furiously as he dodged parked cars and surprised townsfolk. His breath came in ragged gasps, adrenaline surging. He barely escaped into the woods outside town, heart hammering in panic, yet resolve firm. As evening approached, Billy finally reached the edge of Savannah Springs, scratched and exhausted but determined. Charlotte and Jimmy, still tending Zara, immediately noticed Billy's distressed state and rushed to his side. "Billy, what happened?" Charlotte asked urgently, gently steadying the trembling boy. Billy recounted his chaotic discovery in a rush, explaining breathlessly, "It's Jake Wilkins and Donnie Hill. They're the poachers. They're coming tonight. Charlotte, I saw and heard everything." Jimmy looked shocked, yet quickly sprang into action, his calm presence instantly reassuring. "Charlotte, we have to inform Emmett now. This time, they'll have no choice but to believe Billy." Charlotte nodded gravely, placing a comforting hand on Billy's shoulder. "You were incredibly brave, Billy. You've probably just saved Zara's life." Billy finally allowed himself a relieved sigh, proud yet exhausted. For the first time, he truly felt seen and respected. Night began falling gently over Savannah Springs, stars blinking quietly to life above. Zara rested steadily, visibly stronger as Charlotte, Jimmy, and Billy prepared urgently for the threat looming ahead. They stood united, understanding clearly that tonight would test their courage, loyalty, and strength in ways none had imagined. As night descended upon Savannah Springs, the air grew thick and heavy, carrying the distinct scent of a coming storm. Clouds rolled quietly over the distant horizon, blotting out stars and leaving the moon hidden behind a veil of shadows. A cool wind rustled the tall grasses, whispering anxiously through the preserve's sprawling landscape. Billy Parker sat quietly at the edge of the woods near Zara's enclosure, his small frame tense, heart pounding rapidly beneath his faded denim jacket. Despite Charlotte's firm instructions to stay at home, Billy knew he had to protect Zara and her cub. He clutched a small flashlight tightly, peering cautiously through the darkness toward the enclosure, determined to confront Jake Wilkins and Donnie Hill before they could harm the pride. Within minutes, faint footsteps echoed softly across the dry earth. Billy's breath quickened, his pulse roaring in his ears. Through the darkness emerged Jake and Donnie, their outlines stark against the dim glow of distant town lights. Jake carried a hunting rifle slung casually across his broad shoulders, his usually friendly face now set in grim determination. Donnie followed anxiously behind, clearly uneasy about their dark mission. Billy's fear surged, but so did his courage. He stepped forward abruptly, flashlight illuminating their startled faces. "Stop!" he shouted boldly, voice shaking slightly. "You won't hurt Zara or her cub." Jake halted immediately, disbelief quickly giving way to cold irritation. "Billy Parker," he growled harshly, eyes narrowing. "What the hell do you think you're doing here, kid?" Donnie nervously shifted his weight behind Jake, eyes darting anxiously toward Billy. "Jake, maybe we should leave. This is getting out of hand." Jake shook his head angrily, pointing a threatening finger toward Billy. "No turning back now. Billy, get out of our way before you get hurt." Billy stood firm, though his knees trembled, eyes burning fiercely. "No, Zara's innocent. You can't take her." Jake stepped forward aggressively, reaching out to grab Billy's arm roughly. "You asked for this." Billy tried to dodge, but stumbled backward, flashlight dropping from his grip, plunging them into darkness. He felt Jake's strong grasp tightening painfully around his wrist. Panic flooded him as he struggled desperately, heart hammering in pure terror. Meanwhile, back at Redstone, Charlotte and Jimmy had been urgently called to the home of Abigail Turner, an elderly woman well known for her late-night walks and keen observations. Abigail, in her early 70s, had long silvery hair tied neatly in a braid and wore thick spectacles that made her sharp, curious eyes appear even larger. She was gentle but firm, respected throughout Redstone for her wisdom and kindness. "I was walking my dog, Scout." Abigail began anxiously, her small brown terrier wagging nervously at her feet. Scout, a scruffy 5-year-old terrier with bright, inquisitive eyes and a habit of barking at shadows, paced restlessly. "We spotted Billy Parker heading toward the preserve earlier tonight, looking determined. He seemed unusually upset." Charlotte's heart skipped a beat, exchanging a worried glance with Jimmy. "Did you see anyone else?" Charlotte asked urgently, her stomach twisting anxiously. Abigail nodded gravely. "Jake Wilkins and Donnie Hill, sneaking around suspiciously not long after." Charlotte felt dread grip her chest tightly, panic briefly overtaking her calm composure. "Jimmy, we need to hurry. Billy's in danger." Jimmy quickly reassured Abigail with a grateful nod, rushing alongside Charlotte to their parked Jeep. The engine roared to life, tires spinning on the dirt road as they raced toward Savannah Springs, their hearts heavy with fear and urgency. Back in the preserve, Billy was now struggling frantically in Jake's iron grip. Zara stirred weakly within her enclosure, sensing the growing danger. Her powerful body was still recovering, movements slow and labored, yet her maternal instincts and fierce spirit remained undimmed. Zara rose carefully, nudging her cub gently aside before approaching the fence, growling deeply with newfound strength. Jake glanced toward Zara, momentarily distracted by her menacing growl. In that brief instant, Billy managed to wrench his arm free, stumbling backward into Donnie, sending both sprawling into the grass. Jake cursed loudly, aiming his rifle toward Zara in anger and desperation. Just as Jake prepared to fire, headlights cut through the darkness, the Jeep roaring swiftly into view. Charlotte leapt from the vehicle before it fully stopped, Jimmy close behind, both shouting urgently, voices echoing sharply in the tense air. Jake froze momentarily, shocked by their sudden appearance, rifle wavering uncertainly. "Drop your weapon, Jake!" Charlotte shouted fiercely, stepping protectively towards Zara's enclosure. Jimmy quickly moved to Billy's side, helping him up gently, his face tight with worry and relief. Jake hesitated, eyes darting anxiously between Charlotte and Zara. Donnie scrambled hastily to his feet, panicking visibly. "Jake, let's get out of here." Ignoring Donnie's plea, Jake tightened his grip again, aiming once more at Zara. Charlotte's heart thundered in her chest, breath catching painfully as time slowed impossibly. But in that critical instant, Zara lunged forward with surprising agility, letting out a powerful roar that echoed fiercely through the night. Jake stumbled backward, startled and unsteady, rifle dropping harmlessly to the ground as Zara stood protectively between him and Billy. Jake stared wide-eyed, suddenly realizing the magnitude of his actions, fear overcoming anger. Charlotte quickly seized the fallen rifle, her expression resolute and unwavering. "It's over, Jake," she said sternly, holding the weapon firmly. "You and Donnie have done enough damage." Donnie quickly surrendered, raising his hands sheepishly, guilt evident in his downcast eyes. Jake hesitated momentarily before reluctantly following suit, knowing resistance was futile. Billy, shaken but unharmed, hugged Jimmy tightly, eyes wet with tears of relief and lingering fear. Jimmy patted his back reassuringly, murmuring softly, "You were incredibly brave tonight, Billy. Zara owes you her life." Charlotte approached Zara slowly, relief washing over her as she noticed the lioness standing steady, despite her weakened state. Zara's amber eyes locked warmly onto Charlotte's blue ones, a silent bond passing between them, a recognition of trust, bravery, and gratitude. Charlotte reached out, gently touching Zara's fur, whispering softly, "Thank you, Zara." As the distant rumble of thunder echoed softly over the preserve, signaling the approaching storm, Jake and Donnie stood defeated, heads bowed in quiet shame. Charlotte, Jimmy, and Billy stood united, strength found in their shared courage and unwavering commitment to protect the animals they loved. The night gradually settled into uneasy peace, punctuated only by gentle whispers of wind and distant rumbling skies, as the first gentle drops of rain began falling softly over Savannah Springs, washing away the lingering tension and fear. The preserve, though bruised and tested, remained resilient, its heart beating steadily with hope restored. The dawn after the tumultuous night broke gently over Savannah Springs, golden light sweeping away the darkness and bringing a renewed sense of peace to the preserve. The previous night's storm had cleared, leaving behind a fresh, invigorating breeze that whispered softly through the tall, dewy grasses. The sun rose steadily into the pale blue sky, its warm rays touching every corner of the land, promising new beginnings and brighter days ahead. Sheriff Randall Dixon stood by his patrol car, hands resting comfortably on his hips, watching solemnly as Jake Wilkins and Donnie Hill were quietly escorted into separate vehicles. Sheriff Dixon, a sturdy, imposing figure in his early 50s with salt and pepper hair cropped short and a deeply lined, thoughtful face, turned to Charlotte Monroe with a firm nod of respect. "Charlotte, without your determination and courage, and Billy's incredible bravery," Sheriff Dixon began sincerely, "these men might have caused irreparable harm. The whole town owes you both a great debt." Charlotte smiled warmly, appreciation filling her heart. "Thank you, Sheriff, but Billy truly deserves the recognition." Nearby, Billy Parker stood quietly, shyly accepting grateful pats on the shoulder from townsfolk gathered to witness the arrests. The young boy, whose sandy brown hair and bright green eyes now gleamed with quiet pride and newfound maturity, felt awkward yet deeply honored by the community's praise. He straightened slightly, shoulders back, realizing for the first time that he had truly made a difference. Ezra Jennings, Redstone's wise old mechanic, approached Billy with a gruff yet affectionate smile. Ezra was lean and wiry, with thinning silver hair, sharp blue eyes, and perpetually grease-stained overalls. His usually stern face softened considerably as he placed a reassuring hand on Billy's shoulder. "Boy," Ezra began solemnly, voice rough with genuine emotion, "you've made us all proud. Don't ever doubt yourself again." Billy nodded quietly, grateful and humbled by Ezra's heartfelt praise. He glanced toward Charlotte and Jimmy, who stood quietly talking nearby, feeling deeply inspired by their dedication and bravery. Charlotte met Billy's gaze, approaching gently, her blue eyes warm with affection and respect. "Billy, none of this would have been possible without you. Savannah Springs is safer today because of your courage." Billy blushed, quietly grateful. "Thank you, Charlotte. I think I've decided something important." Charlotte raised an eyebrow curiously, encouraging him with an understanding smile. "And what's that?" Billy took a deep breath, meeting her gaze confidently. "I want to become a conservationist like you. I want to learn everything I can to protect animals like Zara." Charlotte felt warmth swell in her chest, touched deeply by Billy's genuine passion. "You're going to make an incredible conservationist, Billy. I'd be honored to teach you." Jimmy Walker stepped beside Charlotte, eyes gentle behind his slightly askew glasses. "We both would," Jimmy added sincerely, his quiet voice carrying the deep kindness that Charlotte admired so much. Charlotte glanced toward Jimmy, her heart quickening subtly. In the gentle morning sunlight, Jimmy's calm presence felt even more comforting, a steady anchor after their shared ordeal. She gently reached out, her fingers brushing lightly against his. Jimmy smiled softly, sensing her feelings mirrored in his own heart. "Charlotte," he began shyly, courage gathering behind his gentle eyes, "I know this probably isn't the perfect timing, but after everything we've been through together, I don't want to wait another minute to tell you how I feel." Charlotte's heart raced pleasantly, a smile blossoming warmly across her face. "Jimmy, I feel exactly the same way." He exhaled softly, relief evident in his expression. Carefully, almost shyly, Jimmy reached out to take her hand, their fingers intertwining gently. Billy, observing quietly, smiled knowingly, proud to witness the start of something genuinely special. A short distance away, Zara rested comfortably, her majestic frame now visibly stronger, amber eyes bright again with renewed vitality. Her cub, playful and curious, bounded energetically around the enclosure, drawing delighted smiles from everyone who watched. Zara watched protectively, powerful instincts balanced perfectly with gentle affection, a symbol of resilience and maternal strength. Over the next days, the news of Charlotte, Jimmy, and Billy's heroism quickly spread throughout Redstone. The local newspaper published an article titled "Heroes of Savannah Springs," with detailed accounts highlighting Billy's courage, Charlotte's unwavering determination, and Jimmy's gentle bravery. Local businesses proudly displayed copies of the paper, and the townspeople openly celebrated their achievement. Amelia Carter, the bright-eyed intern, eagerly helped Charlotte organize a small ceremony at the preserve's visitor center, her bubbly personality infectious as she hurried around, ensuring every detail was perfect. Amelia's enthusiastic commitment had blossomed further through the crisis, and Charlotte saw great potential in the young woman. The ceremony was simple but heartfelt, the townsfolk gathering joyfully beneath the clear Texas skies. Sheriff Dixon presented official commendations to Charlotte, Jimmy, and Billy, while Ezra Jennings proudly snapped photographs from the front row, eyes misty with pride. As applause filled the air, Charlotte stepped forward to address the crowd. "I want to thank everyone who helped us reach this moment, but especially Billy Parker, a young man whose bravery and determination reminded us all what true courage looks like. Savannah Springs and Zara's pride are safe today because of him." Billy smiled shyly, nodding gratefully to the cheering crowd, feeling a newfound sense of purpose and belonging he'd never experienced before. After the ceremony, Charlotte and Jimmy stood quietly together, watching Billy laughing with friends. Jimmy gently wrapped an arm around Charlotte, their bond deepening further as they silently shared pride and relief. "This feels like a fresh start," Jimmy murmured softly, eyes warm. Charlotte leaned against him slightly, heart swelling with happiness. "It is, Jimmy, a new breath of hope for Savannah Springs, for Billy, and especially for us." He smiled warmly, squeezing her hand softly. "Together, always," she whispered, eyes shining brightly with joy. Across the preserve, the land itself seemed renewed, lush grasses thriving, wildlife flourishing beneath the bright, hopeful sunlight. Zara lay quietly in her enclosure, cub nestled closely beside her, eyes closed contentedly, breathing gently. Her steady heartbeat seemed to resonate across the preserve, signaling strength regained and peace restored. Billy, inspired deeply by the events, began regularly assisting Charlotte and Jimmy around Savannah Springs. He eagerly absorbed their lessons, determinedly preparing himself for his future as a dedicated conservationist. Each day strengthened his resolve and deepened his love for wildlife, carrying forward the lessons learned from Zara's courageous battle and his own unforgettable journey. As evening gently fell over Savannah Springs, a calm settled lovingly across the land, soothing and serene. Stars began blinking softly above, their quiet glow illuminating the preserve in delicate silver hues, a peaceful reminder of the courage, loyalty, and love that had carried them through hardship and danger, forging bonds that would remain forever unbreakable. A new breath filled Savannah Springs, strong, hopeful, and profoundly inspiring, carrying Charlotte, Jimmy, and Billy forward together into a brighter, kinder future. Life often places us in moments where courage and compassion become our greatest strengths. Just like Charlotte, Jimmy, and young Billy, we too may face challenges that test our bravery and kindness. Every act of courage, no matter how small, has the power to inspire change and protect the things we love most. Remember, it only takes one brave heart to ignite hope and kindness in the world around us. If this story touched your heart, please share it with your loved ones, and don't forget to leave a comment below to let us know your thoughts. Type Amen to bless all those who stand bravely for what is right. Subscribe to our channel to hear more inspiring stories of courage and compassion between humans and animals. May God bless you and guide you always. Amen.